do first, and then I'll begin the stream. I just need to link this in Zetts' Discord. So that way, if any of them are interested in witnessing this live, they actually can. I'm dealing with a ticking noise, which seems to be coming from my mic, so I have my mic setting so it only activates when I talk proper. That's all. I'm just going to go ahead and link. And then let's go ahead and add Zetts. All right. Going over the Vapicuno fundamentals about as well as I can. This is technically take 2 of what I wanted to do originally. I'm mulling over whether to do a start recording or not. I know he's got a thing he needs to do in about an hour and a half, so I don't want to take up too much of his or other people's time. I know Tetrafolium's on the same thing here and there. Yeah. Waiting on this, and then in a few seconds I'll probably just get going. And then I'll try to articulate my thoughts a bit more properly. The original basis of this was just because I was asked to do this by several people in Zetts' Discord, and I'm pretty sure they were being sarcastic, but I'm willing to go along with this anyway. Speaking of which, let me just go ahead. There we go. Okay. Should be fine now. I've got my music and everything. I'm just seeing if anybody bites. If they've got any takers. I'll probably also DM Corvinus just in case. Okay. Now that that's, yeah. I'll probably go over stuff and get links from Poke Paste on Firefox. I'm using Microsoft Edge for the reading of this PowerPoint, specifically just because. I want to keep this and be able to go through my YouTube without having to shuffle through Firefox windows midstream. Alright. Welcome to the Vapicuno PowerPoint. I meant to do this months ago. He's got a little disclaimer here. I'm pretty sure that's recent. I don't know how recent, but because of my adherence to this PowerPoint, I'm pretty sure he might have added this disclaimer to take his PowerPoint with a grain of salt. He says these are concepts gathered from his own experience of playing ADV, and they're probably not up to date. Something Buzzed has also warned me about in DMs when I adhere to the Vapicuno fundamentals from this PowerPoint. I'll go ahead and do a little disclaimer of my own. My background with Pokemon is not very good. One of the reasons I'm not a PokeTuber in the same sense as Zetts, Jimcord, or Jimothy Cool, sorry. Jimcord is the name of his Discord. And Tetrafolium is because my interest in Pokemon outside of a recent stint in ADV OU is starting to dwindle. Strictly speaking, from a casual perspective, I am pro-Dexit, which means I left Pokemon right around Gen 8 beginning when the Nat Dex was confirmed not to be fully complete. And it's a problem that also plagues Gen 9. So, yeah, I don't like either of their metagames because they're fundamentally incomplete. And as a result, I had to go diving for older metagames, and I ran into ADV OU from watching Jimothy Cool a lot. He's the first guy I watched. Then from there, it snowballed into me having some interest in ADV Revival. I was thinking about making this into an ADV Revival shoot promo, but that idea went out the window. I mean, I make a good heal, but not for the correct reasons. Beyond that, I'm just some guy who ladders on Pokemon Showdown and isn't that good at the game. I'm trying to combat a Dunning-Kruger effect, or as I've taken to call it, Cool Trainer Brett syndrome. Which comes from me having met a smug guy named Cool Trainer Brett, who I used to be friends with, but we don't talk to each other anymore. Vapicuno is an offense player. He likes strategic offense. Creative building is something we have in common. There's a skill ceiling that I think ABR reaches that I wish I could, but my ladder track record is dog shit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. However, I do follow Vapicuno's offense team building. I have 11 teams. They all exist because of Vapicuno in some capacity. Sorry, I'm just briefly going each page because I don't want to take up too much time. I know Zetts and Tetrafolium have a thing that will get much more traction than this. Just full stop, I'm already aware. For the record, I used to dislike Dugtrio, but I then took a stab at V5, and it's okay, but V5 has an issue of needing a 6th Mon, and that 6th Mon, more often than not, requires me to fill in the blanks myself, so as far as sample teams go, it's not exactly end-all be-all, like most people want a sample team to be. I'll talk more about that later. Yeah. I kind of unwittingly violated some of the Vapicuno PowerPoint by talking about rules of thumb in Zetts Court. I'm pretty sure. By using Vapicuno's PowerPoint as a rule of thumb, I lost the plot. That much I can just confess. Follow at your own peril. Okay, this would have been good as part of the disclaimer. I mean, at least it's a good page separator for PowerPoint purposes. Evolution is the best teacher. I don't learn if I don't lose. Fair enough. My 49% win rate kind of has a different picture painted, but I do try to be more intellectually curious. I used to be more active in the Revival Discord's ladder quirks page by asking genuine questions of movesets and the like that I've seen, although after a point where my answers ended up being, dude, it's 1200/1300s, don't take these seriously, I kind of started losing that intellectual curiosity. And I know for a fact that's something Zetts has called me out on. I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that makes me quote-unquote comparable to Fearx Ninetales. Even if that's probably not what he intended for me to suss out. I try to explore wrong plays and team comps, but I just get clowned on for it. Or I try to homebrew my own team specifically because I learn better objectively from them. One of the issues I have with sample teams is that a lot of them are very easy to find, and as soon as you find it and suss out the mons on the team, you basically already know how to beat it. Assuming you can. Some of them are just matchup fishy by the admission of people in Revival Court proper. So there were a couple people who were chewing me out, sort of rightfully so, for clowning on the sample teams that are listed on Revival Court, and honestly, it's kind of tough talk when a lot of the people in Revival Cord do more or less the same thing, even if their words are more proper or they have more game knowledge or whatever. I admit I struggle with understanding value in relative terms, but that leads to the previous point of I used to use ladder quirks to gain genuine insight into the metagame in order to try to improve upon it. Also, I mean, exploiting trends kind of is self-explanatory. That's kind of how metagames everywhere work. Some things are just trendy for whatever reason. I used to only like a specific Skarm, a YOLO Skarm with hidden power ground. The reason being that Skarmory gets turbo punished by Mag if it's not running hidden power ground. And also offensive EVs to use hidden power ground with. Or I guess for those who aren't knowledgeable on Mons necessarily, effort values. But I feel like everyone and their mother knows about effort values because in Gen 6, Game Freak tried to make effort value training a lot more accessible, using a litany of specific features. Something about sandbags, I remember correctly. It was a thing in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, too. A win rate of 67%. Well, that sucks. I have a 49-ish% win rate. I've been trying to improve every now and then, but my track record with sample teams / dicking around with sample teams has partially contributed to me being under the 50% win rate. I also sometimes just don't get good luck. That happens every time I got a guy on the ropes and then they freeze hacks my Dragon Dance Gyarados. Just as an example. +1 DD Mints? Okay, so there's a few things. I'm pretty sure Double Spikes is a sample team now, for the record. I just need to find it. But I was gonna start rifling through the teams that Vapicuno posted and playing around with some of them, because I did play around with Cloysico, which is an iteration of a team H-Clat made called El Clasico, which I don't think the sample listed in Revival Cord emulates it correctly. H-Clat explained the differences to me about a week ago, I'm pretty sure. So even some of the sample teams aren't accurately emulated relative to how the original team builder team built. And that just happens, I guess. It was something BKC and a bunch of other people who are objectively better than me at Pokemon talk about, in greater detail than I'm currently arsed. Alright. Yeah, I try to use my own teams because I like respecting my opponent's skill, but more often than not, I'm still dicking around. Having the extra edge in multiple matchups at the expense of being severely behind in one is not just okay, it is good. I feel like a lot of the samples, I'll go look for a few, violate this specific rule in particular. I also need to be better about being severely behind on turn 1. I end up forfeiting whenever I feel like I can't get through in a specific matchup, and I've been told to forfeit less. I'm currently juggling between high 1300s, low 1400s. I used to be in the 1500s with a specific team. I'll go ahead and get a link to it shortly. I have 11 of these mofos. There we go. Yeah, I call it Shedinja's Esoteric Ascent. I made this team using a Super Epic Ampharos team that was shown in the Vapicuno PowerPoint, and then adapted according to what I thought was a little more anti-fragile, which is the team-building philosophy that Vapicuno favors. It's supposed to be resilient to hacks. The only inconsistency is I have to play Guess the Blissey set to determine whether or not Raikou 6-0s a lot of teams. Otherwise, I just clown on Suicune with both Shedinja and Raikou, which gives me advantages on a lot of specific teams that like Suicune as a linchpin / last mon. Having Shedinja as a mon is a bit of a point of contention, and something I've gotten made fun of for, even though this was not an idea I cooked up of my own accord. I'll just get that out of the way. Also, for the record, the Salamence and Gyarados sets come from I Don't Respect Skarm, which is a Vapicuno team that he uses as example of team building. That goes over the team building philosophy. And there is a team style that I regularly clown on, and that other people, especially in ADV Revival videos, all the announcers also clown on it. It's known as Blue Offense. I'm just getting it now. I've got my own beefs with it. The first thing is that everybody, barring Heracross, can kind of just kill Skarm, so Magneton doesn't feel as valuable a piece on the team. Though, I guess for minimizing spikes, Magneton is okay, but why not have Houdini in the front? Because there's a thing in this which talks about using CB meta to lure Skarm to stay in for reliable mag trap, which, okay, there's a synergy here, but you're also running Hidden Power Fire and Rain Dance on the same set, which neuters Hidden Power Fire, which is one of your best case scenarios for dealing with Fortress, who otherwise can kind of still set up spikes on this team / deal with Magneton by itself in the 1v1 with Earthquake. I made a version of Blue Offense, which then slowly became a balanced team due to my own playstyle preferences. I'll go ahead and get that next. There we go. So, it does similar stuff in wanting Heracross to be the main win condition. But instead of Sub-Select with Swarm, I went with Choice Band Guts and just a more straightforward going face. Heracross can still kill Skarm by itself, especially if the Skarm is not running Drill Peck. But I also have a bunch of other answers to Skarm, and even Venusaur, who is running a physical set that gets hard-walled by Skarm, can still cripple it with Sleep Powder. Otherwise, everybody can kick Skarm in the balls, and then just shrug at spikes, because Porygon can Trace Levitate, and while everybody's grounded, I have single-handedly 6-0'd with Suicune, this Suicune set in particular, against a lot of teams, because they either don't run a fast enough Celebi to stop my shenanigans, or they just die. And then, after Suicune mops up, everybody just cleans up or is just defensively robust. I do run a very heavily defensive Jirachi Wish CM set, and that's just for the Doug Trio matchup, because having Porygon as your only Doug Trio answer is Omega low. Venusaur can also kind of answer Doug sometimes. Mileage is gonna vary, but there's... Oh, hang on. Oh, bugger. It's the commercials. Thanks, Zetts. Thanks for the follow. Sorry, I probably didn't see it in time. I'm just going over this bit by bit, trying to articulate my stuff more properly. Thanks for the good stream. Okay, looks like the commercial ended up going through anyway while I was chatting, so let me continue yapping before another commercial happens. Yeah, I try to be as anti-fragile as possible by having multiple answers, just because, yeah, it's technically the blue offense team answers Skarm with more than just mag, but it also is mag being the least robust individual on the team when you could run something like Jirachi instead, which can then have a more offensive initiative. As per the name Blue Offense. It feels contradictory and wanting to be a balanced team, but it's very non-committal. There is a fragile team I clowned around with some time ago. I'll look it up. It's CB meant Skarm Mag. I'm still trying to put my own personal spin on it as of right now, but it's one of those sample teams I got a little grouchy with, because, yeah, your only physical answer for physical mons in general is Swampert. Otherwise, Aerodactyl just completely destroys you. I will give props to Blissey for having HP and defense EVs both, because that's a thing I think McMegan and others have said. 252 HP and 252 full def is really good for a lot of the metagame and helps Blissey not be constrained, I guess, for lack of accurate wording. But Blissey could still get flinch hacked by Aerodactyl, and without Swampert, the team just folds like origami. And this is especially defensive Skarm that runs a little bit of speed. I will give props for it having Drill Peck. A Skarmory without Drill Peck is asking to be taunt DD'd by either Tyranitar or Gyarados and clowned on. Just for reference. This is also talked about in the PowerPoint. Alright, Tools of Disruption. Basically, you want to just stop your opponent from doing cool things. There's a few game plans. I prefer the defensive game plan. In fact, I've got another of my bunches of teams for exactly this occasion. I think, hang on. Yeah, the Blues Energy inspired one. Half the time people make fun of my teams, but I had a initial framework that belonged to a player objectively better than me. Blues Energy was one of them. He had a slacking team with Blastoise in it. I'm running something a little different from what Blues intended, but this is a very defensively robust team that also just runs a very underrated Calm Mind Dusclops set, just because it can. Also, Umbreon's in here. You could sort of get away with running Tyranitar instead, but then you're putting slacking on a timer. There's a bit of an anti-synergy that was also present in the CB men's team, where you have a choice band wall breaker that wants to not be on a timer from Sand, and then you're initiating the Sand yourself with Tyranitar, which makes your team a little more fragile because you're running anti-synergy. But, I mean, mileage will vary. I experimented with a bunch of Metamons and came to this conclusion from replacing Tyranitar, Gengar, etc., while trying to adhere to a Fortress TSS, which then became a lot more anti-fragile as a result of playing around with different mons. But yeah, I do have a game plan of just clowning on the enemy with residual damage, Spike's Roar, double spinning, which is, yeah, hit and chip. I guess that's more of a balanced game plan, now that I'm looking at this. Yeah, double spinner would be an offensive disruptor. And then, yeah, the examples are good. I'd say bulky offense is the most common team style in ADV nowadays, but this is still true. And one of the reasons why Blue Balance, while technically my weakest team in terms of fragility, because it's dog weak to hell, still works, because I've got a bunch of disruptors on it. Houndoom uses Will-O-Wisp, Venusaur uses Sleep Powder, Jirachi's a Serene Grace user with either Ice or Fire Punch. Oh yeah, 42 also has Thunder Wave. So in a sort of way, besides Suicune and Heracross, the other 4 Mons all disrupt or try to clown on opponents who are trying to sweep and then just laughing at them. So, offensive disruptors, trappers, I think Vapicuno has said that Fortress plus Suitar is fragile, and they specified a reason why. It's because of defensive bottlenecks. And yeah, defensive bottlenecks. A lot of the sample teams that I've seen have defensive bottlenecks. They try to use Swampert as the only defensive physical defense check. And I'm just going, okay, well, I hope you like Hidden Power Grass or Celebi. I have a team that does double Trapper, actually. And I'll go ahead and list that, too, even though it's probably going to get its ass whooped the moment I show it, but here we go. Alright, Anti-Jolt Spikes Goobers. It's got Super Comp Goober, Physics Goober. It's Agiligros. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. There was a guy who was announcing things that kept saying Agiligros. I just rolled with it. Entropy Goober, Digital Goober, Maleficent Goober, and Dancing Goober. And their sales gimmick is exactly as on the tin. It goes for using Mag on a Fizz-Off structure with 3 physical attackers who go fast and hit hard. Meteor Mash only gives a chance to attack raise, but I'm running Adamant with 252 attack. And a Clear Body and Lumberry so that I can start wrecking face early. If I come across a Skarm, I just switch to Mag. Then, if Skarm is non-Drill Peck, I just set up with Taunt Dragon Dance. And then I've got a Belly Drum Zard, who's kind of my emergency I win button in case I need it. It runs lonely because earlier I was trying to do Fire Blast and Earthquake, and eventually I just switched to Hidden Power Flying. It gets walled by Skarm, but everything else dies after a Belly Drum and Select Boost. Even Tyranitar, who puts this on a timer, and then I have to clean house. But it does counter one of the sample team's Jolt Spikes by having Gyarados come in with Hidden Power Ghost, and after +1, it just kills Starmie, Gengar, and then Jolteon. It kills everyone except Skarm, but who then gets set up on. This was made to counter-team somebody in Old Money, the Old Money 2 tournament a few months ago, but it didn't exactly do a good job because the team I wanted to counter-team was not used in that match. But it did fine enough. I I've been tweaking it on and off. This was originally a Calm Mind Celebi. I switched to Leech Seed 3 attacks. Alright, where was I? Explosion, or Endeavor in the case of Pert. Yeah, I've seen multi-boom plus Suicune teams. I don't jive with them. I usually run a ghost type who laughs at boom. Endeavor also exists, but only Swampert really makes use of it a lot of the time. And sometimes Endeavor Pert is just cheese. There is a team structure I want to play with later that uses Endeavor Pert and Registeel, so that you have 2 rock resists. I feel like if I knew the pre-build, I would bring it into ADV Revival 3, no problem. Sleep is my favorite offensive disruptor. There's a couple generations that just ban the entire mechanic, specifically Gen 5 and Gen 9, and I do not jive with either anymore. I actually have a lot of bones to pick with Gen 5 in particular, both casually and otherwise, but Sleep being banned was kind of the last straw. And then Gen 9, I kind of just ditched when they banned Sleep to keep Darkrai in OU. After that point, I just went, okay, yeah, fuck this. And then quit Gen 9 altogether, more out of boredom than anything. By denying an offensive disruption play, it kind of just undermines a lot of structures that would benefit from it in a healthy ecosystem way. I talked about Taunt DD Gyarados as a less obvious offensive disruptor. A lot of mons want to run Toxic. I tried to run Toxic on Zap, but yeah, Toxic is kind of dicey because a lot of mons like to be either part Steel or part Poison, and both are immune to Toxic full stop. So, if you've got a team that has either Steels, Poisons, Gengar, Venusaur, Weezing, or it runs a natural Curemon, then, okay, yeah, Toxic's less useful. The other ones all, oh yeah, they're doing a suspect task on Speed Pass. Although, honestly, I might just do Paraspam if they do that, and then try to do Belly Drum Poliwrath. Alright, yeah, I gotta find another track, hang on. While I'm here, I guess I'll play a Goddess of Victory NIKKE song. I think this will make it hard for me to... Nah, never mind. I'm not even sure if it'll let me actually save the VOD if I do that. I actually tried to one Balatro stream, and it ended up not working. Alright, I'll just... Oh yeah, knockoff. Hang on. There's a Hariyama balance team that I used to play with that actually ended up being one of my least favorite samples. I forget if it was... Hang on. I'll look for it on Revival Cord. Now that I'm actually back in the server, they banned me from Revival Cord as a joke. And there's a guy that still has a free Butterfree nickname. I used to be /B/utterfree. Yeah, there we go, this one. I tried playing with this balance team that, it's seen better days, for sure. To say that it is passive, for the most part, would be a bit of an understatement. It's got no sand to optimize on knockoff. It runs a set that gets walled by a lot of mons. In general, Quagsire, Poliwrath, Lapras can all kind of take advantage of this. Jirachi is a mon that is running a set that I'm told is extremely punishable. I wish I was given further context from the announcer in ADV Revival who talked smack about this particular set so that I could understand a little bit better, because while I can parse things bad, I don't necessarily have the proper words for why a thing is bad. But if at least given that level of understanding from the people better than me in ladder, there's a Knicks Mets lead. I want to do something to give this team a makeover. It's one of the sample teams I want to give a makeover, but I don't have the morale in me right now to do that makeover for Hariyama. But also Armaldo could have been the mon used on this slide. And also, yeah, I feel like offensive disruptors are slowly getting suspect tested out. Apparently, Gen 3 tried to suspect test sleep. If they did that, I would ditch. I would ditch the whole tier. Because I'm just, no. And then set ambiguity by choosing suboptimal sets and the like. It prevents my opponent from easily punishing me. I guess that's why some of the sample teams are intentionally incorrect versus what H-Clat and others actually intended. I also think SP Funk M actually stole a bunch of people's teams and tried to do a team dump as some hackneyed revenge scheme that didn't pan out, and then things just happened to work out by coincidence. I remember reading discussion in the Revival Court proper about that. It's something that came to mind the other day. All right. I have shown quite a few of the aforementioned teams that I regularly use. I'm just seeing where my other teams are relevant. Oh yeah, unexpected moves is kind of nice. On the Blue Balance team, no Salamence is expecting me to go hidden power ice on it until now, and they'll probably just EV their Salamence to be faster than Houndoom, which is sometimes still done for stuff like choice bands anyway. I also can just exploit ambiguity of sets. Tyranitar is definitely one of those mons that has a lot more set variety than people let on. My favorite Tyranitar set is Boatar. Because a lot of Tyranitars want to be Lum DD, so usually people only expect Lum DD. And yeah, it's long story short, sometimes I just sub in on their Doug trio, kill them with Crunch, and then move on, using what I call Hoenn Starter Trio Spike's bulky offense that came from an attempt to use Yellow Scarm. Transform Smeargle, my beloved. Yeah, Transform Smeargle, my beloved. Also, Blaziken is the token, quote-unquote, shitmon. I'm starting to get weary of the term shitmon to refer to underrated mons in ADV OU, because ADV OU is the way it is because a lot of mons can thrive in the metagame compared to other iterations. I won't have as much fun doing Gen 2 team building with Baton Pass and Spikes and all that, although, yeah. Later gens just ban Baton Pass outright because it's toxic. I'm pretty sure I did see a Baton Pass in Gen 5 recently, which has me raising an eyebrow. Roll redundancy? Okay. I mean, that's not always good, but yeah, double spinner. I like double spinner. I like triple wish if I were to give that CB team a makeover. I actually was considering running Umbreon, Jirachi, and Blissey, all wish sets, so that CB Ments can just keep doing what it wants to. There's faster Mons I can do the same thing with, though. I may get more mileage with CB Arrow, although every time I want to use Lychee Berry Aerodactyl, I end up just doing DD Gyarados or DD Ments instead. I have another example of this, hang on. This is a team I specifically made to counter somebody who was using Quick Claw Magneton of all sodding things. Here. There you go. So the idea is there's a guy on ladder, Sword of the Spirit, who has a thing where they almost always use Dragon Dance on a lead Ments. First turn. And they have a Quick Claw Magneton and a Rain Dance Ludicolo. So my modus operandi is I use Starmie to clown on Flinch Haxing from Ments, Tyranitar, and Metagross, and just kill with Hydro Pump and Mystic Water and Modest. And then I use Spikes to clown on them besides with Fortress. Technically, this is double spinner because offensive Starmie can fit Rapid Spin in here if it wanted. It doesn't, but in other scenarios, yes. And then I have a Dragon Dance Salamence of my own who's resilient to Ice Beam. It just sets up on Ludicolo and kills. And then I have a Curse Lax as another emergency I win button. I also disguise setup as hit and run to wrong foot my opponent. Across all my sets, I run Calm Mind users for this exact purpose. Or I encourage wrong sacrifices. This is more just get good. I wish I had a little stream banner with Cranky Kong saying get good from the Five Nights at Fuckboys games, which I have wanted to play, but my IRL is extremely volatile, and usually if I'm not streaming this, I'm streaming Goddess of Victory NIKKE, because I hopped on that bandwagon back in January, and usually if I'm strapped for time, I can just pop on NIKKE for upwards of an hour, and then just bugger off if I need to, or I can come back. I usually just riff on the story in NIKKE, but it's a good game that wants to tell a good story and wants to tell a good message. It just tells that message badly, and with very tropey characters. Some of the tropey characters are charming in spite of themselves, but it wears on me really fast. Ugh, Christ. Sorry, my legs are asleep, because I'm not using an office chair or desk at present. I think my voice is starting to give out. Yeah, versatile Pokemon like Tyranitar and Jirachi are some of my favorites. I like Sleep Disruptors. My favorite Mon in the world is Butterfree. I have a Butterfree team. I was provoked into making it by Revival Cord, so this is a Infernape's paw of their making, but it exists. It used to be a spec-off team, because Buzzed told me to make one of each for specific team structures. So I tried spec-off and went mix-off instead. It runs 2 sub-CM Mons to get the drop on Blissey, who does not have enough Seismic Tosses to kill both Mons, because pressure lowers Seismic Toss PP. And if it's Seismic Tossing anything else, it's getting slept on by Butterfree, exploded by Claydol, and cannot handle all 6 Mons at once. I rate Blissey and Fortress as number 1 and number 2 respectively. I considered making a tier list. I'm not terribly arsed to do so at this time. I did join ADV Revival 3 so I could one day make my own tier list, but really, I can barely be arsed as is. I don't expect to get very far in ADV Revival 3, because a lot of the big players, who are objectively some of the greatest in the entirety of Pokemon ADV, have been playing for as long as I've existed in the Pokemon space, which has been since 2010. Possibly even older than that. They started earlier than me and also were more committed to Mons than I ever could be. The most committed I've ever been to Mons in general has been a Pokemon Platinum Nuzlocke that I tried to do on an old Toshiba that crapped out really fast that I was using in college. I went to a college full of nerdy hipsters, some of whom were also Smogonites, and my introduction to Smogon was being made fun of by Smogonites, talking mad shit about me when I was trying to get into Mons with making Butterfree teams back in DPP OU. Back when it was the norm. So, yeah, my origin story sucks ass, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not arsed to do competitive metagame shenanigans. Yeah, so Triple Wish would be nice. I like Roar on Zapdos. I'm pretty sure all my Zapdos sets run Roar. I did Excloisico with that in mind, actually. Because I was getting dicked on by speed passers. Jask passers, specifically. It runs Metal Sound because Toxic isn't that good when I can just use Spikes and Sand. This could be a TSS team, but it leans more on the offensive side, and if you see lead Zapdos, more often than not, I have to play guess if you have a Blissey or no, and Metal Sound punishes Blissey. That's really all there is to it. Sometimes I just sometimes I just Roar on the Jask, or Metal Sound on the other Mon that wants to Baton Pass. I ran another Boatar. Tyranitar can also run Roar and Taunt and other things, so it can also be a disruptor. Gyarados is a Mon I used to not like very much, but an overwhelming majority of my teams now use Gyarados in them in some capacity. I guess I can talk about Zetts Sunwell Plateau, which also uses Gyarados in its most hyper-offensive form, which is no Taunt or Thunder Wave. For reference, the other Gyarados set, or the Gyarados set in Excloisico runs Thunder Wave. Fast physical offense, yeah, that exists. Offensive sequence disruptors. I want to make a Missy Superman team, because I like Missy Superman as a concept, but Missy Superman has only ever lost me games when I tried to use it in its intended form. I lost to a Hidden Power Ice Magneton at one point, and it was awkward. General principles. Sorry, yeah, this is it. This has 128 pages. I am on page 28. Yeah, this might take a hot minute. I think it's so far taken me 48 minutes. All right. Not bad. Yeah, this will be quick, I guess. Tactical versus strategic. Oh yeah, Zapdog is a thing. DD Spam's also a thing. I do a lot with my original iteration of Super Epic Ampharosis Shedinja team. I want to skip ahead and show that for replay MST3King, but Not sure I have it in me right now. My voice is starting to give out right now. Information advantage is extremely important. Again, the reason I don't like using sample teams personally is because I'm giving free info to my opponent, and they will probably punish me, especially if they're smart enough to suss out that I'm using a sample team. I could get dicked on really fast. Hit and run dry pass. I think I only dry pass on one team, or actually, no, I have a dry passer. Hang on. I'm not intentionally revealing all of the teams I use. Flanky made this team for me recently that uses a dry passer. Spoilers, it's a second Shedinja team that has baton pass in it. But at least it does have a dry passer in it. The other one is Umbreon, who isn't a dry passer per se, but has Wish. Hang on, I'll just show that one again. Mind you, I was originally using Toxic in that slot. I was yelled at about using Zap Cannon Fortress and Toxic Umbreon in the same team, as it's apparently quote-unquote anti-synergistic. I wasn't entirely sure how. Also, for the record, on a lot of the more underrated mons, they have really outdated Smogon sets, so I've been using Tetrafolium's videos to get updated effort values on those mons. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to Tetrafolium. One day I will do a Shedinja video, Tetrafolium style. He has said 50 times that he refuses to do a Shedinja video. Fair enough. Divide and Conquer is sort of what I had in mind with the Double Dragon Dancer Shedinja team. Divide and Conquer splits resources into hitting two fronts. Yeah, if Blue Offense had more disruption besides Thunder Wave Magneton, I would be a lot more enticed to use it again. Overloading is a thing. I talked about it already, but yeah, you just throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at a specific Pokemon. Swampert for physical, Blissey for special. Sorry. Might need to get my asthma inhaler. I wish I didn't have asthma and lived somewhere that asthma was not a total liability. Anyway, I'm skipping down to the triangles because a lot of the backbones on them can be summed up in these two slides. Specifically this one, which talks about the physical water backbones. Gengar with Fire Punch and Hidden Power Grass is sometimes a thing that clowns on a lot of physical backbones. There's a few mons here that I put in tandem with one another. Oh yeah, there's a thing that calls itself V5. Its original name is Verfin. I'm not saying the actual name because I cannot be arsed. I don't jive with the etymology. But I made a CB Jask version. I call it Turbo Stall instead, for just personal preference. It's the team that helped me respect non-YOLO Scarm, and also Doug. I use both in the same one. I actually picked V5 with that in mind and then put Ninjask on because Choice Band Ninjask is actually very good at disrupting a lot of dry pass structures that V5 otherwise falls victim to. I also have a Calm Mind Blissey as alternate win con. I was provoked into making a Blissey team because I kept saying Blissey #1, and while my teams work against Blissey, I didn't put Blissey on any of them previously. I plan to put Blissey on more teams for the record. Actually, that segues into Special Backbones. I gotta watch out for Special Defense Doug in particular, although there was a conversation at Zetts Cord which boiled over to one of the revival bigwigs saying to not use fast, frail, 252 attack speed Doug, or to use only 252 attack, 252 speed Doug until I get to 1900 Elo. That's never happening in my case. So, yeah, no. I'm not saying this because I'm objectively a good player without needing to be high elo, and the idea of using elo as a way to be snooty to me just kinda registers as being a dick. It's an issue I've taken with Jumpy and a couple others who do that to other people. And that's the closest to a shoot promo I'm able to get with any Revival Cord individuals. I don't harbor any ill will, even towards Violet River, who said that I had ban-worthy yaps when I was in a grouchy mood about sample teams in specific. I don't have any actual ill will towards anybody, and even trying to do a full-on heel kayfabe is just leaning into Cool Trainer Brett syndrome, which I can't be arsed with anymore. I am a villain VTuber, for the record, and I specifically have an anecdote about the Guild of Calamitous Intent refusing to let me arch some dipshit YouTuber who made fun of Asterisk War in 12 long-ass videos. It's a long story. The Jamoke in question, I don't even want to say her name, but I will. Trixie the Golden Witch. I want to arch her as an archenemy, but I am told no. That's just it. She's a Jamoke as far as I'm concerned. Alright, yeah. Divide and Conquer. This is a quiz. I am not doing the quiz, but there are a few I can actually suss out some of the stuff in these teams. Zardloom is a comp that exists and has existed, and is the only reason both Breloom and Zard are in OU status. Actually, Charizard used to be in UUBO, if I remember correctly. This is a Vapicuno team. Because he just outright confesses it's his. And then, yeah. It clowns on all the bulky waters in a number of different ways. Mind you, I can see why people don't like Shedinja, because TSS is a very common team structure that if you have all the pieces and don't have a means to stop all of them consistently, Shedinja cannot hit the field as anything other than a spike sack. And that's what Super Epic Ampharos meant for Shedinja to be. So I ended up missing the point of the team while sort of having a similar team in spirit. That used a lot of the same mons, by the by. She had a Metagross and a Dugtrio in her version. I use Gyarados and Claydol in mine for compare and contrast. And then this is Altina's. This is a Super B comp. I like Super B and Superachi. I have not quite sussed out the perfect team structure for each, but I do want to use them more. Superachi in particular is a noted offensive juggernaut that I would rank number 3 if I could justify it sincerely beyond CM Rachi clowns on Blissey, Wish Rachi clowns on Blissey. Blissey's not the end-all be-all of special offense backboning, the same way that Swampert usually is for a lot of physical threats. Because quite a few mons have sub-CM sets that can just punish Blissey for being Blissey. Entei is another mon that is underrated that I want to use on a specific team. I want to make a special offense team with both Entei and Rachi on it. I have not yet cooked it up. Because I just haven't had time. Goldilocks theorem is a thing. Yeah, here. Drill Peck HP fight Zapdos, my beloved. Yes. Yes. Sorry. It's a point of contention between me and a couple people that mixed Zap. I'm trying to lure Blissey to kill Blissey, and I've been told of a thing called the super effective swindle. I think that's what Jimothy Cool calls it. According to calcs, sometimes a move that isn't super effective but is stabbed will do more damage than super effective. It's true for a few generations, I'm pretty sure. Pokemon, as a game style casually, is otherwise rock, paper, scissors with extra steps. I prefer Mega Man X6 from my rock, paper, scissors with extra steps jollies, but I have not played Mega Man X6 on stream. I did play X1 and X4. I meant to play Mega Man X2 a bunch, and X3. X3 is also the GOAT. But I like X6 way more, for a litany of reasons that, once I play X6 casually, will become more readily apparent, although I will probably save scum in X6, just because X6, as a game to 100%, is piss difficult. I like having my intelligence stimulated. Not every game does this. There are some games like Y2K and Life is Strange, where the game wants me to turn my brain off, but I can't, and then it becomes pretentious, nerdy, hipster nonsense. For me trying to curse less, my sister and I clown on some guy's abusive mom for cursing 50 million times. First name Chibi, last name Demix, I guess. He had an abusive mom who cursed a lot, and we thought it awkward. So it's an anecdote that I want to curse less, and am actively trying to. Overloading Skarmory. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not trying to yell, it's just this room setup kinda sucks dinosaur balls. So I want to make sure I'm heard, sometimes over music in the background. Yep, Skarmory chippers. No easy pivot out of Skarm. Lol Toxic. Lol Drill Peck. Hi Spikes, bye Spikes. Oh yeah, I've seen Toxic Blast Beam, because Flame Blast, or Fire Blast, sorry. Ugh. Hang on, I think I've got another team that also laughs at Skarmory across the board. I think I've shown all 11 teams. Yeah, I think I've shown all 11 teams of mine, but yeah, all of them laugh at Skarm in some capacity. Including the one that actually uses Magneton. And yeah, I sometimes like putting a Dragon Dancer and a Calm Mind Sweeper on the same team, because overloading is very good. Overloading hoverers is an interesting thing. Pursuitable. Alright, yeah. Cloysico. Okay, yeah, I see Breloom in here. Flanky made a version of the second Shedinja team that also has Spore and Focus Punch and all that. Trapping is overloaded. I have a double Trapper team for this exact reason. Porygon 2 is one of my favorite mons in the tier because it allows me a bit more flexibility with trapping. A lot of people overvalue Magneton and Doug Trio, sometimes both in the same set, and also Suit Tar is punishable. These teams are sort of good at trapping, though. Now, this is a Medicham team where if this was what Mana Medicham brought to the table, here, let me show what Mana Medicham is so that I'm not just saying sample teams out of context. Yeah, this is what is being referred to. There. Yeah, this is what's being referred to. It just uses Medicham instead of Heracross. And I guess it uses Leftovers Agility instead of Houdini. Trying to think of other differences. I want to do a upgraded version of Medicham Manecune because I like the idea. I prefer the Zetts Hyper Offense version of Medicham across the board as a lead. I'm just getting it out for reference. Again, because Zetts actually also has good teams that I want to keep bringing to revival tourneys. I made a spin on Zetts Hyper Offense. I'll go ahead and get the original while I'm at it. Yeah, it runs Focus Punch instead of Earthquake, but my Snorlax does stuff. Shift Tree is kind of here for basically me just punishing people who underestimate specific mons. That is part of what a lot of my teams try to do. Here, let me get Zetts HO. Zetts Hyper Offense 2.1, yeah. I call my version Sunwell Plateau because I didn't want to do the numbering system because I'm reminded of World of Warcraft, which is my Kusoge of choice when I want to play a Kusoge. Most private servers turn WoW into something better than anything Activision Blizzard ever could. I heard about the third Demon Hunter spec in Midnight, and yeah, it looks cool, but also fuck retail, frankly. Bugger it sideways, even. Anyway, yeah, this is Zetts Hyper Offense. Zetts and I prefer different mons. That's basically all there is to it in terms of difference. But I did like the cut of Zetts' jib. So I used different mons, but a similar structure that also uses Medicham and Gyarados in the same set. Sorry, I went on a tangent. I was supposed to relate this to overloading. Reversal Caesar. Oh, maybe I should borrow this team. I should probably experiment with it first. Although, Vapicuno's PowerPoint is a font of pre-builts that I can just grab at any point. A Magdoll! Oh! This could have been a Magdoll team. I could have brought this into old money and possibly won with it. Oh. Okay. Hindsight's a bit silly. I think that offense is one of those things that is really hard to grip for players because it is where you have to build with intentional redundancy, and standard team building guides and practices steer you away from redundancy. True! No, honestly, true. Sorry, I've been doing the rat IRL. Some of my speech patterns resemble rat IRL. One of the only League players I can stomach watching anymore. Sag. Anyway, yeah. Many teams, especially offensive ones, require a keen sense of when it is the right time to use momentum instead of pivoting around. It is definitely not restricted to the late game. Switch advantage. Okay. So comparing offense to defensive matchups and play is so very difficult because it is practically apples and oranges. When you're discussing defensive teams, it's much easier to pinpoint and be like, you are weak to DD. Yeah. Oh god, I've heard you are weak to DD-tar so many times. Because it's not about accruing momentum, wearing down shared checks. Offense is about crafting a team that can maintain a set pace with dudes hell-bent on weakening the opposing select threats. Holes are acceptable. Your threats are able to pose enough threat that you do damage, weaken, get switch advantage. And I guess overloading and redundancy are meant to be synonyms. I would go so far as to say, if an offense looks like it's too defensively sound, it's probably not a good offense. Finding the defensive holes you can cheat on a bit to gain a huge upside in offensive potential. Okay. Sorry, I wish it was just the Discord screenshots with the underlining. But I guess Vapicuno does go into more detail about being able to use offensive power and transferring defensive roles into counter offense, which won't be obvious at a first glance. Better offenses, ironically, appear less consistent and have defensive holes. So being weak to DD-tar isn't necessarily bad, I guess. I mean, if I have a defensive hole, okay, cool, but not every Tyranitar is a DD-tar, and DD-tar doesn't always win against me. I've actually checkmated DD-tar teams before with all 11 of my teams. Although, frankly, I'm kind of just still slumming it down in low ladder using lingo from Revival Chord peeps, so grain of salt, I guess. My Pokemon experiences aren't exactly the most intuitive. Minimize defensive backbone in lieu of strong... Oh, okay, so that explains the I don't respect Skarm team. Control the tempo. That explains all those Jinx spec-offs that are fragile as hell and more often lose than win, but when they have high highs, they have really high highs. I actually did consider making a Jinx spec-off team that uses Entei and Jirachi as the win cons to overload Blissey with. That's probably not going to last as an idea, but it's at least food for thought because I am trying to still parse what Vapicuno is saying to this day. 3 core concepts of momentum. Reversal? Oh yeah, Sceptile kind of does this, as does Pert. I don't really use Blaze Mons as intended. I think the closest I get is Blaziken with Fire Blast and not being so easily killed by Zapdos Thunderbolt. I run... Hang on, yeah, let me get the set I use. Hang on. Yeah, I use Mild instead of Rash for nature because if I run a minus Spadef nature, I just get dumpstered by Zapdos Thunderbolt. I don't run Select Berry, so I don't need to get pinch buried. But there are situations where I would want to use these mons for their intended purpose. subbing to overgrow range for Leaf Blade is pretty funny. I will eventually figure out a way to adopt more of these concepts with later teams. I just haven't had the right amount of game knowledge yet. And this is something I'm trying to admit as a full transparency for Zetts and others, that I am still work in progressing a bunch of teams to adopt a lot of these concepts. It's just I juggle this and NIKKE and WoW private servers, specifically Turtle WoW, where I'm trying to get ATS in Naxxramas, which is requiring me to lock into that specifically. I want to go back and get all the library sequences in Shadow the Hedgehog that I've been putting off because I want to get ATS. It's a whole infinite loop of things I'd rather stream than Pokemon that kind of make it so I'm not running more teams than I currently am. I also have work obligations. I would like to find a better paying job so that I can continue streaming and not feel like I'm dead weight to my folks and to neurotypical society that have been telling me that I'm a burden since elementary school. So, yeah, I've got bigger issues than just Pokemon and just League of Legends, which I'm saying I am a year sober from League of Legends and hoping to stay sober from League of Legends, even if I'm watching people get pissed drunk off League. Yeah. But yeah, I want to feed off damage, turn situations around. I have a lot of get out of jail cards. And I'm not that great at being one turn ahead, but I have been running curse users like Registeel and Snorlax with this in mind. And I do run a lot of the same things on all 11 of my teams. I try to treat Shedinja as more than a spike sack, but sometimes it is just a spike sack. That is meant to be the worst case scenario, however. Alright, quiz time. Okay, looks like another team I might borrow for Revival 3. I mean, as soon as I get any sort of mileage in Revival, I'm probably shopping for pre-builds here. Genexus has already told me 50 million times to use pre-builds in Revival tours. So it's just very easy advice to follow. Especially because that's what I was doing in Old Money 2, except for the one homebrew team that was meant to counter Team Zinc, and it didn't. She whooped my ass. But then I did Loser's Bracket. And eventually got some wins that Tetrafolium Games announced over. Strategic offense is fun. And here's the I Don't Respect Scarm team. Vapicuno has topped ladder with it. It's not a consistent team by Vapicuno's own admission, but yeah, here's what the team looks like. I do run the EVs of both Gyarados and Salamence. The weird bulky DD Mence has actually managed to win games by itself in that team. The Zard set is strange, I'll admit. I may take this team with me and then eventually start putting a personal spin on it. I'm not a fan of Bolt Grass on Jirachi, personally. I feel like Bolt and Water Pulse is better coverage, even if I'm losing out on the potential Lantern matchup. But I think the other guys have Lantern covered. But yeah, this team works because it thinks out the box, is the general idea. Lead Venusaur is a sleep lead, for instance. Zard is a lot more versatile than I give credit. Beat up also clowns on Blissey. HP Ice is your insurance against Salamence. It also, yeah, Charizard is there for the 3 main wishers. Yeah, this is just divide and conquer. Scarm and Pert teams are broken by Charizard, HP Grass Gross, and HP Grass Rachi. Mono Water teams are pivoted by Venusaur and broken by Boom. Or Taunt Gyara. Taunt Gyara just dumpsters Milotic. Something that I don't think a lot of people give enough credit to Taunt Gyara. Oh yeah, here's the divide and conquer. Toxic, checkmark Toxic X Drill Peck. Taunt Gyarados can potentially sweep. I had a guy on Discord try to tell me that Struggle Scarm still beats Gyarados under Sand, and my answer is no, it fucking doesn't. No, it just doesn't. Especially if I have Scarm at -1 attack from Intim. Because double switching can sometimes happen. Or sometimes I put Gyara in when Scarm kills another Mon. Or I get Gyarados gets roared in. There's circumstances where Gyarados comes in and -1 Scarm, and then I just taunt. And then if you're struggling against Gyarados, I'm just laughing at you and setting up to sweep. X-Toxic checkmark Drill Peck is Salamence potentially sweeping, and that's just because Scarm most likely does not have the attack investment to make Drill Peck hit hard enough to stop Salamence from doing what it wants. So these two are specific for other teams. Checkmark Toxic, checkmark Drill Peck, checkmark Roar. X-Protect is weak. But I mean, then I'm just not able to cannot. If you don't have Roar on Scarm, then in the case of my Shedinja team, Raikou cannot be phased, and Raikou just laughs at you. Because if I play Raikou incorrectly is the only time where Scarm gets the edge on Raikou. In that specific scenario. For this team, Metagross cannot be phased. Dragon Dancers and Calm Minders break bulky physicals for each other. And Metagross is considered the universal bulky water wall breaker in this team. I do like the idea of using Metagross as a wall breaker. If I were to use this team, I would just use Houdini to do wall breaking shenanigans with it. And then double HP Ice on Mons removes opposing Salamence. This is something I should probably do on a team at some point. Momentum, reversal, neutralization, and maintenance. Yeah, not every Tyranitar carries Rock Slide, so Brick Break with Charizard is usually safe. There's a lot of sets that will forego Rock Slide in favor of something like Ice Beam. Also, I could just Brick Break on specific Mons to kill Tyranitar with a lot of the time. The being weak to DD Tar feels like cap on my 11 teams, but at least a few of them don't have the easiest time against DD Tar, but can still handle DD Tar just fine. I have Intimidate pivots across most of them? Hang on. Salamence, and Gyarados. Salamence and Gyarados, Salamence, Gyara, Salamence, Gyara. Yeah. On an overwhelming majority, I have an Intimidate pivot, and I'd probably run other Intimidate pivots like Tauros if I felt I could get away with it. Although the best Intimidate pivots are usually Gyarados and Salamence. There are other ones I can use. Venusaur wants to HP Ice lead Zapdos immediately. Also, Zapdos is usually faster than Venusaur, so why on earth would I sleep lead with Zapdos with Venusaur in that case? Charizard outspeeds or at least ties a good proportion of Zapdos, letting it deal severe damage even if it has to be sacked. Okay. Steals plus Dragon Dancers. Okay, that's a combo. Let me see. Flanky Shedstar. Gyarados and Steelix. Gyarados and both Metagross and Magneton. Salamence and Fortress. Yeah, okay. I already do this too on my main teams. I do want to put I don't respect Skarm back on the map, but oh yeah, ABR said something about Mixments being better than the other Salamences because of damage output and wider coverage. Mixments may be able to KO Tyranitar without losing HP, but it freely lets in Zapdos or Gengar right after. This is especially true on a lot of teams that end up being weak to Zapdos or Gengar as a result of using Mixments instead of the other Menses, like the Flanky Shedstar team. Although I also run Starmie to clown on Zapdos and Gengar. And I also have bulky enough answers in Snorlax, and yeah, Snorlax also clowns on Zapdos and Gengar. If I'm running if a team is running both Roar Zapdos and Taunt Gengar, then yeah, Snorlax isn't my most immediate answer, but then usually I can kill it, or kill the Zapdos and Gengar with something else. I had to mull that over. Alright, so Venusaur is... Yeah, this set... Even if Venusaur had HP Fire, it doesn't ever want to click it. Because Charizard is on the team, yeah, that makes sense. I prefer HP Fire on Venusaur if I'm running this specific set, but I would probably run it on something like Blue Balance too. Which is another team idea I might throw into the ring at some point. This is just going over the I don't respect. Yeah, this is the page I want, though. Because Preferred Sweeper against Aerodactyl, outspeeding at +1 with Jolly is extremely important. It's also a really good water check, especially against Suicune. The Seisha Ninja team I cooked up overloads against Suicune in particular, because Suicune is one of the deadliest water types in the OU tier, full stop. So it's one of those things where I'm sort of still doing stuff correctly. Now, I wish I were a fan of either of these sets. I want to feature them in some capacity, but I don't quite have the game's knowledge to make them work. I prefer mixed Metagross with Psychic and HP Fire, for the record. And I don't like minus Spadef, because then you're just asking to get killed by special attacks a lot faster. Although, you could probably still I don't know if you outspeed Mag with this, honestly. It is a key Skarmory switch-in. Swampert teams frequently have no defenses against HP Grass and Meteor Mash. Mono Water teams also just get boomed on. So Metagross still clowns on water teams in general. Usually when I make my own teams, I use Can It Beat Blue Offense or Mana Metacham as a litmus test of effectivity, because in low ladder, a lot of people like using both those teams. And then I have essentially rehearsed how to destroy them. Everyone knows it by now, so probably not. Yeah. I will probably reuse this team. I did start last year using it. So it's one of those things where at some point, yeah, I will probably still use this. I need to regain my thoughts. My head hurts like a mofo. I should probably drink more water at some point. This is the 2023 update. This is the one where I got the Callus Invitational teams from. This is the changelog. They talk about all the different, explaining the counterintuitive concept of breaking and trapping the same topic. They go over the slides they edited. And then I will try to find the one replay that used C Shedinja in it. Where are you? I know you're here, puppet. Oh, this is Mana's. Okay, so C Shedinja. Where are you? Did they take it out? Oh, fuck. They might have taken it out. Wait, no? No? Okay. Oh, C versus Mana. Oh, there we go. Found it! Are we on the right slide? Okay, we are. Alright. So, this was using Houdini. I'm pretty sure this was Houdini. Because they had to switch out. I do like the name Crackety Jones. Boom. Yep, nope, it just dies. Yeah, this ran us elements. And here's Shedinja, known as Dead. I would probably nickname it something like Spiral 1 120% to get the same message of Dead. I did diagnose Spiral 1 120 with Dead a long time ago, actually. I think 4 years ago, Yo Man had gotten a world record so near impossible to break that it caused one of the other competitors, Saboom, to crash out and break his Spiral 1 disc. And this is an anecdote that I just, yeah, okay, this was using Slackberry for the record. I did not do that. But they did use, hey, hey. Yeah. Okay, so this is a toxic men's. The Medichan counter. No, that's actually fair. And Ban Mana Fee is bussin'. I mean, based. Sorry, I'm used to saying bussin' as a synonym for good. Just the different communities I'm in. I am a linguistic magpie. I'll admit I don't know the etymology of these teams. So I didn't quite pick up everything from Super Epic Ampharos' team, but I borrowed a similar structure. I wasn't a fan of Doug Trio back then. I'd probably run Shedinja and Doug Trio together on a team someday. I just would probably pick different mons to pair with them. Ah, rip. Shedinja was the GOAT, though. On this, and that was the thing that inspired me to pick up Shedinja as a main Pokemon to use. Super Epic Ampharos. I do follow the pros, even if it's not the exact sample teams that are in Revival Chord proper. So I do at least respect the ever-loving shit out of the people who bring these along. I just usually end up putting a personal spin to play by preference, because I'd be a fool not to. I'm pretty sure that was Hidden Power Fire. Oh, yep, there's Pataya Berry. And you just get destroyed. Jirachi gets crushed, kill, destroyed. Yep. I prefer Surf on Kingdra because I have a tendency of getting PP stalled by Zapdos. But I also sometimes just win with Surf anyway. especially on the necessary damage calcs. Although Hydro Pump might be on a different Kingdra Shedinja team. I do want to run multiple iterations because the idea of Houdini plus Shedinja is very funny. This is Houdini. I can sort of just tell, because a lot of lead metagrosses are Houdini. And, yeah, usually they want to boom turn 1 to level the playing field into a 5 versus 5 in the favor of the team builder that brings Houdini. That is why it's called Houdini. It makes another Pokemon disappear. And then Kingdra just kind of won here. Alright, I need to get the PowerPoint again. Hang on. But that was the thing I wanted to do, was what I wanted. Okay. Open with Microsoft Edge. We good? We good! Okay. The Shedinja is real, ... Oh, it's very real, alright. The other two Super Epic Ampharos teams might also be something I adapted to Shedinja comps. Although, the main thing is that a lot of underrated mons tend to be clickbait in revival tournaments, and that's just by the admission of the tourney attendees. They bring specific mons like Poliwrath and Misdreavus and dick around in there, and I was gonna do a shoot promo about that being kind of an asshole move, but it's whatever. For if you, it's like playing Diddy Kong Racing with Crunch. A Crunch user in Diddy Kong Racing will beat anyone and everyone to a pulp, especially if they can play Crunch correctly. There's a skill ceiling thing with specific low-tier characters. I was gonna use a NIKKE example, but I haven't quite buffed up Crow and Sin all the way to Core 7 yet, and RNG's been kind of a dick. So I don't quite have it in me yet to do exactly that as an example, but yeah, I like doing that. I like doing off-meta things specifically because it's a form of skill expression that gets underappreciated in a lot of games, especially Pokemon. I like the skill expression, and usually it's a lot more commendable, but... alright, I kind of did replay analysis of my own, but... Oh god, Big 5 Molt. Another of the teams that usually gets followed up with a laugh track. Mana versus Jester. Yeah, I may as well go for it. Alright, so we got the usual unfavorable matchup. Oh, nice! Baton Pass, Baton Pass turn 1, get Pursuited. See, this is a teammate that I would appreciate on Metacham a lot. Sutar. Because, yeah, Gengar is usually your answer to Metacham if it's Choice Band. And then, yeah, you get clowned on. YOLO Skarm does die to Magneton Thunderbolt in a way that Spadef Skarm doesn't. But Skarm still ends up getting its ass whooped by Hidden Power Ground Skarm. I don't know why Big 5 Molt is followed up with a laugh track. But I think I have a few theories. Although a real Jester is playing pretty solidly here. Yeah, I don't think it can. I don't think any of the Big 5s can handle Lead Metacham well. Truth be told. Manaphy's just clowning on Jester. Although then Metacham just dies to Bolt. Okay. Although, yeah, no, Gengar cannot escape from crossing fate, and also does not get to leave a lasting impression with Will-O-Wisp. Alright, do you have Brick Break? No, but Earthquake is there? Yeah? Okay. Free entry point for Salamence. There isn't too terribly much to say. I did think about signing up to be an announcer for ADV Revival 3, but my commentary would not be particularly intuitive, necessarily, or turn-for-turn style gameplay. So, for what it's worth, yeah, it would just be something like this. Okay, we get Thunderwave Tyranitar. I've seen that a lot. In ladder, I mean. Yeah, Lax comes in and just curses on everybody. I'm pretty sure, yeah. I don't think Tyranitar has a move that can necessarily kill Snorlax right off the rip. This might be a T. Yeah. Yeah, Tyranitar instead of Mag. This would be a... I think if this were Mana Metacham, I'd use it way more. Honestly. Because then it's just not ripping off blue offense. Because, yeah, this is a DD Mence. Although, DD Mence does just die to Ice Beam. I prefer bulkier EV spreads whenever I do DD Mence because, yeah, usually having a quad ice weakness just means you get clowned on by coverage moves. Ice is one of the best offensive types, but it's reportedly the worst defensive type. I think Grass, as a defensive type, gives Ice a run for its money, though. At least in Gen 3. Ah, shoot. Zetts is live now. I should probably hurry this up. Yeah, GG's. Salamence with one Calm Mind just cleans up. Yeah, I would rather run Celebi or something that can actively threaten Suicune here. Or I would have saved Explosion off Gengar for it, but this matchup was in Manaphy's favor because Sutar just stopped Gengar from being disruptive. Alright, back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, DD mixed Brick Nance. Did lure Bliss successfully, and then Sandchip. So this is replay analysis. And then, yeah, Kerslax was just laughing at Swampert. If Swampert regularly ran a move that wasn't Rest, then it might be a way better physical wall. Because Swampert is too easily worn down, is the thing. So then, Vapicuno gets into step-by-step team building. He has a really good Roselia team. And it uses Agilizap. Or, it uses Mix-Zap, sorry. Getting my stuff mixed up. It can only take limited hits is worse against offensive waters. Zapdos lead with Drill Peck, HP Fighting, Thunderbolt, Thunderwave. Okay. So one of the reasons I like this team is because that is my favorite Zap set. HP Fighting, Thunderbolt, and Drill Peck. At least with Drill Peck and Thunderbolt, you're getting double stab, and then you can just run coverage based on whatever you need. I know there's an argument for HP Grass. And then, yeah, it goes over whatever the other two. I usually build this way. I would do my own example if I had more time and wanted to make sure I caught I will watch this replay, actually, of the team in praxis. All right, let's go. Super Epic Evro stars in me MST3King a bunch of Callous Invitational tourney. Okay, yeah, this is way less impressive than I first thought. Okay, Snorlax gets dumpstered by Body Slam on the Switch, although then Shadow Ball kind of just dents it. Willow is fucking garbage. Yes, it is. Although, honestly, Toxic and Hypno wouldn't be much better. Snorlax usually comes with immunity as an ability, which makes it immune to poison, and then Hypno has low accuracy. There is a team that one of my pals, well, I guess acquaintances more like, we don't really, we have run into each other outside of Pokemon, though. Specifically, yeah, we were laughing at Shift, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom streamer who single-handedly killed SpongeBob he killed SpongeBob. I mourn the yellow sponge. I have yet to do a drive. I have yet to do a drive-by in SpongeBob's honor. Okay, no. So he has the acquaintance I have runs a Hypnogar spec offset. I'm trying to get out of tangent range, just like Gyarados could not get out of sand chip range. And then Agilocross. This is why Magneton is not an ideal crutch for Fizz-Off, because Agilogross, sorry, oh god. Ugh. All things considered, I don't think it matters how it's pronounced, but I would rather pronounce it correctly if I can help it. Okay, Roselia comes in, gets a spike off, and then they don't have a ride spinner to get rid of the spike. What? Why is Magneton your Zapdos switching? Oh, no. Why? Why did you switch it in? Also, this is Swords Dance Celebi. I like the idea, but also, Swords Dance Pass had to be neutered to high hell. I blame Ninjask, but yeah. A lot of issues with Baton Pass can be solved by just banning Smeargle and Ninjask. Honestly. So much of ADV OU could be solved if it just banned specific mons instead of the complex bans of abilities and the like. I get banning Sandveil as an ability. I get banning Soundproof because it constrains phasing. Or at least Mr. Mime. But also, yeah. There's a lot of logistical issues and complex bans that just don't really jive with me. Because a lot of the issues can be five-headed. Although, ditching Speed Pass does get rid of an option to take out Aerodactyl and Dugtrio. Although, in the case of Dugtrio, a lot of people are just going to be bringing Porygon 2 if they don't Speed Pass. And then Aerodactyl is a very awkward mon, because it does hit hard and is naturally fast. But if you run two physical walls, then you're just matchup diffed. Celebi why did Celebi not use Leech Seed? Did it not have? Maybe if it wanted an attacking move, it needed hidden power fighting, maybe? I could see that. I'm just confused, but yeah, Swampert kind of just comes in. Oh, Milo didn't have Toxic. Although, honestly, Curspert is a fun mon that usually just makes Swampert a way sturdier defensive check. Although the mons it checked are also long gone by this point. And there's also Parachance. Yeah, this is why no refresh on Milotic is the thing. I get Hypno. I guess this was a Hypno Milo lead. GG's. Okay. That was a good team. This is a harder example that also has its own team structure. The beauty of Speed Pass with Choice Band Gengar. Maybe I do a version of Omniweeb's Gengar lead, but instead of... Oh, wait, no, it still runs Hypno. Damn it! Well, I mean, yeah, one day. And then there's a YouTube channel. I plan to go over these teams and probably use some of them. Except the Sandvale one, since that's not legal anymore. And I don't know if Speed Pass will be legal anymore. Maybe Vapicuno will update this again. For now, though, I'm going to go find somebody to raid and see if this VOD can be harvested for a future YouTube video. Alright, let's see who's available.